What's up everyone, Steven here from Charge Overland. In front of me I have the brand new Falken Wildpeak T4W all-terrain tire. This video is going to cover all the details, specs, basically all the information you need to know about this tire. And my channel is obviously focused on Rivian content, so if you're a Rivian owner and you're looking to upgrade your tires, which I just did to these Falkens, this will be a great resource for you to learn what the numbers are on these tires in terms of efficiency, range, road noise, and also if you're just looking to learn about these Falken Wildpeak T4Ws and you're not as interested in the Rivian content, there'll be plenty of those details and information as well in this video. Let's get started. After about 24,000 miles on my OEM Pirellis, a good amount of trips, and plenty of off-roading, they were ready for a replacement. I wanted to upgrade to a slightly more capable and aggressive tire, so after reaching out to Falken, I was able to get a set of their new Wildpeak T4Ws to test out on my Rivian. All right, let's talk design and appearance of these Wildpeak T4Ws. This is a rugged all-terrain tire, so it's meant for both on-road and off-road use, and it should strike a really good balance between on-road comfort and some serious off-road capability as well. Now, I do want to take some time during this segment to compare these Wildpeaks to the stock OEM all-terrain tire that you can get with the Rivian. There's definitely some noticeable differences, and I'll go through all those in this segment here. So starting with the sidewall, one of the first things you'll notice is this raised lettering. It's really chunky. I like the look of it. It looks super tough, but it's definitely less pronounced on other tires, especially the OEM all-terrain. Also, you've got some webbing right around the bead here where the tire meets the wheel. And then another big difference you're going to see with these Wildpeaks versus the OEM tire is that the shoulder blocks are staggered. So this is going to provide a little bit better grip and traction when you're off-roading. And they've also got a very square profile to them as well. Again, this should just help with off-road capability. The OEM tire is rounded and it does have a more symmetrical shoulder block. Okay, so getting to the main portion of the tire, the center tread here, you've got an offset channel pattern, and this is to be expected on an all-terrain tire. The change in direction is a little bit more dramatic, I would say, than what's on the OEM tire. And another noticeable difference is tread depth. So this Wildpeak T4W has a tread depth of 1/2 inch through the center of the tire, and the OEM tire is 3/8 of an inch. So you're getting an extra 1/8 of an inch of rubber on the outside of this tire, which should hopefully help it last longer and also provide a little bit more traction off-road. The tread blocks are much more squared as well than the OEM tire, and they include siping to help with wet or icy conditions. Both this tire and the OEM tire are 3-peak snow rated, so it should be a great solution if you live in an area where you get lots of rain or snow. All right, moving back to the sidewall of the tire, there's another really noticeable difference here between this and the OEM, and that is there's some really deep siping grooves in the tread blocks on the shoulder of this tire, and the design in general of this sidewall is quite a bit more aggressive than what you see on the OEM tire, which should make it also more capable. Now, both these tires are the same size at 275/65 R20. Obviously, the taller tread blocks on the Falken mean the overall diameter of this tire is just a little bit bigger than the OEM setup, and the Falken is an E load rated tire. Now, that brings me to one of the biggest differences between the OEM tire and this Falken. I weighed the OEM tire at 48.6 pounds, and this Falken is coming in at 67.4 pounds per tire. So it's quite a bit more heavy than the OEM tire. Now, obviously, you're getting more tread depth, a more aggressive sidewall, and the warranty on this Falken is longer as well. So the OEM tire had a 50,000 mile warranty, and this Falken has a 65,000 mile warranty. Now, in terms of cost, the Pirelli comes in at $448 a tire, and the Falken undercuts that by a little bit at $424 per tire. All right, if you're wondering what the changes are from the outgoing T3W tire, there's a few things that Falken has updated. First of all, the tread design is completely new for this T4W. I mentioned the staggered shoulder blocks. Those are new as well. The sidewall is supposed to be more durable and less prone to punctures. There's a completely new rubber compound also, and this is supposed to make the tire better in all driving conditions. All around, this tire should be better than the outgoing T4W. Now, if you follow my channel and you've watched some of my videos, you know most of the content is focused around my Rivian R1T. So if you've got a Rivian or you're going to be buying a Rivian and you're considering getting these tires, you probably want to know, beyond just the appearance and design of them, what they're like to drive. What's it like on the highway? What's the road noise like? And what is the efficiency of these tires? So I'm going to be getting into all of those details up next in this video. Before we get into the range test, let's quickly cover the tire install process. Rivian has a specific mode for tire changes that you'll want to enable or make sure your shop enables before getting started. From there, the tire change process is pretty straightforward. One last thing to note though, if you are also swapping your spare tire, make sure you remove the jack and also take out the vertical metal rod with the included tool to make sure when you pull that spare tire out, you're not damaging your wheel. With the tires installed on the Rivian, it was time to start some real-world testing. Okay, about to start the first efficiency test with the Falken Wildpeaks on the Rivian. We're in conserve mode, low ride height, brake regen is high, and the climate control is set to 68. 1 on the fan speed, basically the same settings as I've used on every other test. And we're gonna go ahead and reset our trip computers. This efficiency test was done with an iCamper tent on the truck bed and a Thule caprock on the roof. I just recently tested the efficiency with the Thule platform and was running the OEM Pirellis for that test. So now that I had the Falkens mounted, running the same test again would provide a pretty good comparison of efficiency between the two tires. Before we get to the results, I also did a bit of road noise testing and saw very little measurable difference to the stock all-terrain tires, but I'll talk a little bit more about road noise later in this video. All right, first test is done. And here are the results. With a number of 1.85 miles per kilowatt hour, I could now compare to the test I had just recently run with the OEM Pirelli tires. And the result from that test was 2.09 miles per kilowatt hour. So for this specific test, I saw just above a 10% reduction in efficiency using the Falken tires. Now, most of this is likely due to the increased weight, but it's also important to remember the Wildpeaks have a more aggressive tread, and while they likely are a better off-road and winter tire, they aren't designed as much for efficiency as the OEM tire. Now, where I live in Southern California is generally quite dry, but a few back-to-back rainstorms hit shortly after I had the Falkens mounted, and it gave me a good chance to cover some miles with these tires in heavy rain. I was really impressed with the traction and handling, and while I wasn't able to compare back-to-back with the OEM tire, I definitely felt like these Wildpeaks were more stable and confidence-inspiring in these conditions. So after some weeks of local day-to-day driving and a few of these shorter tests, it was time to get out for a full long weekend of driving and get some real-world testing out on an adventure both on and off-road. I'm out here in Alabama Hills in California. I've got the Falken Wildpeaks mounted on the Rivian, and this will be my first trip out with these tires on my truck. I'll be covering a good amount of highway miles, some dirt roads, and we're gonna be doing some off-roading as well. So it should be a really good mix of terrain to test these tires out. We'll be out here for 3 days of camping and exploring, and I'll check in towards the end of the trip to let you know my thoughts on how these tires perform. Alabama Hills is a beautiful desert location at the base of the Sierras with some amazing spots to explore. I camped here for 2 nights and spent some time checking out the short trails this area has to offer. While the scenery was amazing, the terrain was fairly mild and didn't really provide much challenge for these tires or the Rivian. So on our last day, we left Alabama Hills and decided to make a little detour to check out a portion of the Cerro Gordo Trail before we headed home. For off-roading with this truck, I've generally aired down to the Rivian recommended number of 30 psi. Now this is definitely higher than I would use on my Wrangler, but you can see even at 30 psi, the tire is stretching quite a bit. And due to the weight of this truck, I think that recommended number is probably a pretty good place to be for most off-roading situations. The trail started off as a pretty basic bumpy dirt road, but a couple miles in, we started to encounter some more challenging terrain, and this is where the fun really began. It ended up being one of the more technical portions of trail that I've done with my Rivian, but the truck and the tires did really well, and I'm excited to hopefully come back to this trail and complete the entire 30-mile loop at some point in the near future. For this trip though, it was great just to get the tires on some dirt and rocks before we made our journey back home. Okay, I'm back home. I had an absolutely awesome trip. It was really fun to explore Alabama Hills and the surrounding area. Got to drive on some different terrain, paved roads, dirt roads, off-roading, kind of what we set out to do when we started the weekend. And it was a great way to test these tires out on a long weekend trip. So the area we were camping in Alabama Hills doesn't have any crazy off-roading. It's mostly just dirt roads and a few smaller trails, which we did check out. And these tires don't ride too stiff. I didn't really air down for any of the driving in Alabama Hills. So it was nice that they're soft enough to absorb some bumps, washboarded roads, and all that. And then from there, it was really good to get out to the Cerro Gordo Road, which isn't a road at all, it's a trail, but it provided a great way to test these tires out on some more difficult off-road conditions. I had the tires aired down and traction was really good. It was a mix of some pretty big rocks, but then also some loose dirt, and really didn't have any issues. I was very impressed. This is definitely one of the more difficult sections of trail that I've done with my Rivian at least. And these tires held up extremely well. I noticed with the Pirellis that I would get scratches and small gouges pretty easily on those tires, and I don't see any of those on the Falkens yet. So pretty happy with how they performed off-road on this first outing. In terms of efficiency, I'm seeing pretty similar to what I saw in that initial test that I did. It's around 10 to 15% range hit. Now, obviously the tires are heavier, but they are more capable. So for off-roading, snow driving, even in the rain, I think they're quite a bit better than the OEM tires, but you're going to sacrifice some range with that capability. So it's really up to you if these tires are going to be the best choice. If you're on the highway most of the time and you're really not going to be doing any off-roading, I don't know that I would recommend getting a tire like this. But for me, I'd like to really do some more challenging trails this year, and this tire I think is going to be really amazing for that. On the highway, these tires have been great. Only a small amount of road noise, honestly, between 40 and 55 miles an hour. There's a little bit of drone, but other than that, I honestly haven't noticed any difference. So that's pretty impressive considering the tread is a bit more aggressive than the OEM tire. I was expecting to have a little bit more road noise, but been really impressed with the fact that it's not there. One of the last things I haven't talked about too much, but that is just the appearance of the tires on the Rivian, and I think it's pretty awesome. This is a little bit more of a subjective opinion, but I think they toughen up the truck a little bit because the tread pattern is definitely more aggressive, and for me, they just look really cool on the Rivian. All right, that pretty much does it for my thoughts on this trip and overall on these tires. I've had them for just over a month now. Hopefully all the information in this video you found useful. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Really appreciate the support, and I will see you guys out on the next adventure.